welcome to the lounge. I'm here with Stephen A. Harris, Nick Markounis, and Kurt Leston, who have joined me to talk about all the excitement of the first week of the 2013 NFL season. So guys, there are a bunch of quarterbacks in particular that had great weeks in week one. Two of them that stood out, Colin Kaepernick, Peyton Manning. Who had the better week? Starting with you, Stephen.
I'm going to have to say Peyton Manning. There's no way he didn't have the better week. He tied an NFL record for passing touchdowns in the game, threw for 406 yards at the age of 37, which I'm not saying that Peyton was done and or anyone thought he was, but did anyone expect him to go out there and throw 7 touchdowns?
Quick question for you. When was the last time you threw 7 touchdowns in a game?
My dreams.
I'll tell you mine. I was playing Madden the other day, and I was Peyton Manning. This thing only happens in video games, but he did it in real life.
Does that surprise you?
Hashtag
does
awesome.
that surprise
of course it does.
7 touchdowns in the game? That surprises me.
That doesn't happen every day.
Peyton Manning, I think we all expected him at some point in his career to get
But 7 touchdowns. 7 touchdowns.
He's playing in Denver. The ball's light as air, no above sea level,
Wouldn't
just floating it out there. He picks up Wes Welker, his receivers. No, for me, it's got to be Colin Kaepernick. Did you expect it? Second year, we're not sure what we're going to get. Sure, he's a running threat. We all know that. He's clearly a monster on the ground. But then he comes out and throws for 410 yards. 410 for Colin Kaepernick.
But if I look at Colin Kaepernick's numbers from this past week, I'm not like, oh wow, that was a record. That was record worthy. I'm not gonna look back and be like, yeah, Colin Kaepernick had a great game. I'm gonna look back and Peyton Manning is gonna be in the record book for 7 touchdowns.
You're preaching to the choir. Okay, listen, it's one thing to put up over 400 yards against a Green Bay Packers defense, but it's a different thing to put up 7 touchdown passes in an NFL game. I don't care who you're playing.
Ravens defense that lost half their players
to retirement and free agency.
But for me, it's more impressive to get the touchdowns than it is the passing yards. And that's why I got to go Peyton Manning.
I'm going to side with Nick here for a second because I think that it is all about expectations. The fact that Peyton Manning, if you're throwing for 6 touchdowns, that's not 7, it's not record breaking. But it's still, it's still up to that point where he can do it. We know he can do it. Colin Kaepernick, people have been saying he's a running quarterback. He doesn't know. He's not a pocket presence. He proved everybody wrong the other day by throwing 400 yards. Something that's impressive for anybody to do, let alone a guy who's branded as a running quarterback.
Sure, I mean, it's great. I'm not saying it's not great. It is great what he did. It's a feat. He accomplished it. But at the end of the day, for me, it's the 7 touchdowns has to stand out more in my eyes. I mean, you know what? Yeah, it's Peyton Manning. I understand that, and he is great, and we know he's great. But at the same time, no one saw 7 coming into week 1 with a brand new Wes Welker, and that clicked immediately.
It was a record-breaking performance, and so it is maybe a little bit more impressive than Colin Kaepernick. I'll give you that. Now, every season we go into it expecting teams to be certain types of teams and perform certain types of ways. But often there are teams that prove all the doubters wrong, whether it's for better or worse. Which team this season, so far after week 1, isn't what you expected them to be? Start with you, Kurt.
Well, I got to say, guys, it has to be for me. It's the Oakland Raiders. I thought the Raiders going into this game and Matt Flynn not being there and relying on Terrell Pryor, I thought, oh boy, nothing's going to go well for Raider Nation. I got to tell you, listen, they didn't win the game, and he did throw 2 interceptions, but he broke the team record for rushing yards in a game with 112. He was exciting. He made the Raiders fun to watch.
Do you know
That's
who
the
leading rusher in the NFL is right now, Kurt?
Is it Terrell Pryor?
It's Terrell Pryor. I agree. That's a great pick.
Well, thank you.
Literally, everyone thought Oakland was going to just get blown out. Terrell Pryor's, brought some love to Oakland. That's a good thing to see for them. But for me, it was Buffalo. And for the reason why is how they handled the E.J. Manuel situation. Obviously, having his knee surgery in the offseason, we weren't sure how much he was going to play. And I thought they were really going to rely on the run game with C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson.
Got shut down.
Right, he had to convert through the air. He had 2 touchdowns. The Bills played the Pats very close, put a scare in New England. And we'll see. The East might be more, AFC East might be more open than we thought.
It was disappointing to not see Jeff Toole starting week 1. I really was banking a lot on that on my fantasy team. But for me, I'm actually going to go a different direction because you guys want to talk about the team that we expect to do worse and expect to do better. I want to talk about a team that I expected to do better and didn't really live up, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. They only put up 17 points against a New Orleans Saints defense that's mediocre at best, really. I don't really know who they have in that secondary. Ever since Darren Sharper left, I don't really know who's going on back there.
A lot of new faces.
And I really thought that Matt Ryan could break out with Julio Jones, Tony Gonzalez, Harry Douglas, Roddy White. They have a really good core.
Don't buy into Matt Ryan, okay? Matt Ryan is not a winner. He never could win the big game at BC.
But he's a regular season monster.
And I feel
he really puts up those numbers.
But they're never going to reach their potential with him at the helm. He's not going to do it. He can't win the game.
Maybe not in the postseason, but in the regular season, he usually shows up.
Regular
and it's
season.
very, it's, and I'll, come playoff time, we'll have another discussion about this.
I hope so.
But it's pretty disappointing not to see him put up the big numbers that you expect to see.
Atlanta was definitely one of those teams that we thought was going to be at the top of the league and didn't exactly play like it. There are a bunch of teams that we thought would be at the top of the league that definitely played like it week 1. So after week 1, who is the best team in the NFL?
I got to tell you, it's the Oakland Raiders. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, thank
Guys,
God.
listen, I got to tell you.
What are you sipping
right
on?
now-
Yeah, I was questioning that a little bit.
Good stuff in that cup, I'll tell you. Guys, has to be the Denver Broncos. Has to be, okay? You look what the Patriots did with a great offense with Tom Brady and how they made it to the Super Bowl. Granted, they didn't win, but they made it to the Super Bowl with a great offense. I mean, imagine you have Peyton Manning with Wes Welker, Demaryius Thomas, some of those guys have to be double covered. If they're not, they're going to win. Who's going to stop this team?
Where's the run game?
I'm a little
Sure,
nervous
but
about
you know what? The Patriots never had a great run game either.
For me, it's going back to Kaepernick
Yeah.
versus
I mean,
Manning.
I
49ers,
agree
how
there.
can you stop them? Do you load the box to stop the run game and prevent him from being a scrambling quarterback, or do you let him throw for 410 yards? How do you stop this offensive juggernaut?
See, here's my thing.
How do you stop it?
The over 400-yard passing, that's more of a fluke than it is Colin Kaepernick. So how I stop
We'll
him?
see.
I make Kaepernick have
I
to
think it's
beat
too
me.
early
That's
to
what I
say
would
that
do.
it's a
Peyton
fluke.
Manning's going to dissect
I don't
teams
know.
apart.
Because in the postseason, how much does Peyton Manning really show us? Other than that year that they won the Super Bowl,
He's won a ring, my man.
You get
He's
him,
always
if they
throwing
don't get
an
home field
interception in the
advantage,
big game.
he plays in a cold environment where he can't grip the ball.
Listen.
He loses that accuracy that he has always. You've seen him, New England.
Yes, of course
Exactly,
I have, but I
exactly.
got to tell you, when Peyton Manning is on, and when he's in Mile High and he's at home, which he could be because they're going to win a lot of games this year, who's going to stop them?
When he's on, though.
But
I have to agree with Nick and say that it's the 49ers. Because not only, because you want to keep talking about Peyton Manning, great, give him the MVP award. But we're talking about the best team. And the best team right now has to be the San Francisco 49ers. They went in, they bullied the Packers a little bit, just like they did in the championship game. That defense is still...
I could bully the Packers. The Packers defense is awful.
All right.
Bold
Great.
statement.
That's one of the worst
New strap on
defenses
how I'm
in
gonna
all
go
the
out there
NFL.
in the next week. It's definitely, it has to be the 49ers.
Not
Their
to
defense
mention-
is still a top, is it still a top defense, number 1, number 2 defense in the league.
Right.
Kaepernick has shown some great signs going
What
on.
you're
Yeah,
not,
but listen,
what you are not,
Exactly.
hold on, real
When
quick.
Manningham comes back.
Exactly.
What you're not paying
exactly.
attention to is in this day in the NFL, great offenses can beat great defenses. It's going to happen.
Well, listen,
Well, we're
the
talking
49ers, to me, are the more complete team right now, just after 1 week. Just after 1 week. We'll see. Maybe you'll be right later in the season, Kurt. Maybe.
It's about time you agree with me.
Maybe.
Doubtful.
Maybe. That's all the time we have. Thanks for hanging out with us in the lounge. But next up, Ryan Ballard sits down with NASCAR expert Steven Toronto to talk about a wild weekend leading up to the Sprint Cup chase. Stay tuned.